Sophia stared at her reflection in the mirror, her heart racing. There it was again, a flash of green in her normally brown eyes. She blinked hard, and her eyes returned to their usual warm chocolate color. But she knew what she'd seen. It was happening more frequently now, and she couldn't ignore it anymore. At 16, Sophia had always felt different. It wasn't just typical teenage angst. There was something truly unusual about her. She'd been adopted as a baby, and while her parents were loving and supportive, they couldn't explain the strange occurrences that had followed Sophia throughout her life. It started with the plants. When Sophia was upset, nearby flowers would wilt inexplicably. As a child, she'd been banned from the local greenhouse after an entire section of rare orchids shriveled during her visit. Then there were the incidents with small animals. Neighborhood cats and dogs would freeze in place when she glared at them, only to shake it off moments later as if nothing had happened. But now, things were escalating. The changes in her eyes were new and terrifying. And this morning, she'd found something even more alarming. A single tiny snake protruding from her scalp, hidden beneath her thick, dark curls. Sophia's hand trembled as she parted her hair, revealing the small green serpent. It flicked its tongue at her, and she stumbled back from the mirror, her breath coming in short gasps. "What's happening to me?" she whispered to her empty bedroom. A soft knock at her door made her jump. "Sophia, are you ready for school?" her mom called. "Just a minute," Sophia replied, her voice higher than usual. She quickly arranged her hair to hide the snake and grabbed her backpack. Whatever was going on, she couldn't let her parents find out. Not yet. As Sophia hurried downstairs, she nearly collided with her father, who was rushing out the door for work. "Whoa there, speedster," he laughed, steadying her. "Everything okay?" Sophia forced a smile. "Yeah, Dad. Just running late." He studied her face for a moment, concern flickering in his eyes. "You know you can talk to us about anything, right?" She nodded, the guilt of her secret weighing heavily on her. "I know. Thanks, Dad." At school, Sophia found it harder than ever to concentrate. She kept one hand pressed against her head, terrified the snake would make an appearance. During lunch, her best friend Zack plopped down beside her, his tray clattering on the table. "Earth to Sophia. You've been zoned out all day. What's up?" Sophia opened her mouth to brush off his concern, but something in Zack's kind eyes made her pause. They'd been friends since childhood. If anyone would believe her, it would be him. "Zack," she said quietly, "if I tell you something crazy, do you promise not to freak out?" His eyebrows shot up, but he nodded solemnly. "Cross my heart." Taking a deep breath, Sophia leaned closer and whispered, I think I might not be human." Zack blinked at her. "Okay," he said slowly. "What makes you say that?" Glancing around to make sure no one was watching, Sophia carefully lifted a section of her hair, revealing the small green snake. Zack's eyes widened, but to his credit, he didn't scream or run away. "Holy shit," he breathed. Wow. How long has this been happening?" "The snake just appeared this morning," Sophia explained, her voice shaking. "But weird things have been happening my whole life. My eyes change color sometimes, and—" She trailed off, realizing how insane it all sounded. But Zack was nodding thoughtfully. "You know, this actually explains a lot. Remember when you made Tommy Peterson pee his pants in 3rd grade just by glaring at him?" Despite her anxiety, Sophia couldn't help but laugh. "I forgot about that." Zack grinned, then grew serious again. "So, what are you going to do?" Sophia sighed. "I don't know. I'm adopted, so I have no idea where I came from or who my birth parents are. But I need answers. Well, count me in, Zack said firmly. Whatever's going on, we'll figure it out together. For the first time that day, Sophia felt a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone in this. That night, unable to sleep, Sophia found herself diving deep into mythology websites. She'd always been drawn to Greek myths, but now she pored over them with new intensity. When she came across the story of Medusa, her blood ran cold. Medusa, the Gorgon with snakes for hair, whose gaze could turn people to stone. It couldn't be. Could it? A soft hiss made her jump. Sophia turned to find several more tiny snakes had emerged from her scalp while she'd been reading. Her stomach churned with a mixture of fascination and revulsion. Okay, she whispered to herself. Okay, I can deal with this. The next day at school, Sophia wore a beanie to hide her new serpentine editions. She and Zack huddled in the library during their free period, brainstorming. So if you really are, related to Medusa somehow, Zack said, keeping his voice low, what does that mean? Do you think you can turn people to stone? Sophia shuddered. God, I hope not. But I need to find out where I came from. There has to be some explanation. What about your adoption records? Zack suggested. Sophia shook her head. Closed adoption. My parents don't have any information about my birth mother. Okay, well, let's think logically, Zack said, slipping into problem-solving mode. If Medusa is real, or was real, there might be other myths that are true too, right? So maybe we should look for, I don't know, unusual statue gardens or something. It was a long shot, but it was all they had. Over the next few weeks, Sophia and Zack scoured the internet for any leads. They created a map of unusual stone structures and statues in their state, planning weekend trips to investigate. Meanwhile, Sophia's transformation continued. More snakes appeared daily, and she found herself wearing increasingly elaborate hairstyles to hide them. Her eyes now shifted between brown and vivid green at random, forcing her to wear sunglasses most of the time. But the most alarming development came one afternoon as she was walking home from school. A stray dog ran up to her, barking aggressively. Startled, Sophia stumbled back, her sunglasses slipping down her nose. She locked eyes with the dog for just a moment, and watched in horror as the animal froze mid-bark, its body rapidly turning to stone. Sophia ran home, tears streaming down her face. This was no longer just a personal identity crisis. She was dangerous. That night, she finally broke down and told her parents everything. To her surprise, they weren't entirely shocked. We always knew you were special, sweetheart, her mom said, hugging her tightly. When we adopted you, there was a note with you. We were told not to open it until you turned 18, or unless something unusual happened. With trembling hands, Sophia opened the envelope her father retrieved from their safe. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in elegant, swirling script.
To my daughter, if you're reading this, then the legacy of our bloodline has awakened in you. I am so sorry for the burden I've placed upon you. Know that giving you up was the hardest decision I've ever made, but I did it to protect you. You are descended from Medusa herself, and with that lineage comes great power and great danger. I've spent my life running from those who would use our abilities for evil. I couldn't bear to see you hunted as I have been. But you are stronger than you know. Our curse can also be a gift, if wielded wisely. Seek out the island of the Gorgons. There, you will find the answers you need and others like us. Trust in yourself, and in the love of those around you. May Athena guide and protect you, my little snake. With all my love, your mother.
Sophia read the letter 3 times, her mind reeling. She had a mother out there somewhere, a mother who was like her. The island of the Gorgons, she murmured. But where is it? Her father squeezed her shoulder. We'll help you find it, Sophia. Whatever you need. Over the next few months, Sophia's search for her heritage became all-consuming. She and Zack pored over ancient maps and obscure mythological texts. Her parents used their connections to reach out to historians and archaeologists, always careful to frame their questions hypothetically. All the while, Sophia's powers grew. She learned to control the stone-turning gaze to some extent, but accidents still happened. Her backyard became littered with small stone animals, and she lived in constant fear of hurting someone she cared about. It was Zack who finally made the breakthrough. "Sophia!" he shouted, bursting into her room one afternoon. "I think I found it." He spread a map out on her desk, pointing excitedly to a small, unmarked island off the coast of Greece. "Look at the shape. Doesn't it look like a coiled snake?" Sophia's heart raced as she studied the map. "It does. But how do we know for sure?" Zack grinned triumphantly. "Because I cross-referenced it with shipping records and satellite images. That island doesn't officially exist. It's not on any modern maps, and boats and planes always avoid the area. It's like it's hidden." For the first time in months, Sophia felt a surge of true hope. "We found it," she whispered. "We actually found it." But their excitement was short-lived. As they made plans to travel to Greece, disaster struck. A group of men in dark suits appeared at Sophia's house, demanding to see her. "We represent an organization dedicated to studying and controlling mythological phenomena," their leader explained smoothly. "We've been watching you for some time, Sophia. Your abilities could be very useful to us." Sophia's father stepped protectively in front of her. "She's just a child. Leave her alone." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm afraid that's not an option. Either she comes with us willingly, or we'll be forced to take more drastic measures." In that moment, Sophia felt a surge of power unlike anything she'd experienced before. The snakes in her hair hissed and writhed, and her eyes blazed green. "No," she said firmly, stepping around her father. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The men reached for their weapons, but they were too slow. Sophia's gaze swept over them, and in an instant, they were transformed into stone statues, frozen in various poses of alarm. Sophia stared at her handiwork, breathing heavily. I didn't mean to." Her mother hugged her tightly. "You did what you had to do. But we need to leave now. It's not safe here anymore." Within hours, the family was on a plane to Greece, with Zack insisting on coming along. As they flew over the Mediterranean, Sophia stared out the window, lost in thought. She was leaving behind everything she'd ever known, racing towards an uncertain future. But as the sun set over the sea, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Sophia felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. Whatever awaited her on the island of the Gorgons, she was ready to face it. She had her family, her best friend, and a growing understanding of her own strength. As the plane banked, Sophia caught a glimpse of a small, snake-shaped island in the distance. Her heart leapt. There it was, her ancestral home, and the key to understanding who she truly was. The snakes in her hair rustled softly, as if sensing their approach to the island. Sophia smiled, no longer afraid of her reflection. She was Sophia, daughter of Medusa, heir to an ancient and powerful legacy. And she was finally ready to embrace her destiny. As the island grew closer, Sophia straightened in her seat, her green eyes glowing with determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them head-on. After all, she was a Gorgon, and Gorgons were nothing if not survivors. The plane touched down on a hidden airstrip on the far side of the island. As Sophia stepped onto the tarmac, she felt a surge of energy course through her body. The air here felt different, charged with an ancient power that seemed to call to her very bones. "Welcome home, daughter of Medusa," a voice rang out. Sophia turned to see a group of women approaching. Their hair writhed with snakes of all sizes and colors, and their eyes shimmered with the same otherworldly green as her own. Leading them was a tall, regal woman whose serpentine hair was streaked with silver. "I am Euryale, sister of Medusa and your great-aunt," the woman said, her voice warm but tinged with sadness. "We've been waiting for you for a long time." Sophia's mind reeled. Here at last were answers, but they only led to more questions. "My mother," she began, her voice catching. "Is she?" Euryale shook her head. "Your mother is not here, child. But her sacrifice ensured your safety, and now you have found your way back to us." Over the next few weeks, Sophia immersed herself in the hidden world of the Gorgons. She learned of their true history, not the twisted tales spread by ancient Greeks, but the real story of a lineage of powerful women, blessed and cursed in equal measure by the goddess Athena. Zack, ever curious, threw himself into studying Gorgon lore and history. Sophia's parents, though unable to fully participate in the magical aspects of the island, provided unwavering support and helped bridge the gap between Sophia's old life and her new reality. But for every question answered, new ones arose. Sophia discovered that her powers extended far beyond turning creatures to stone. She could communicate with snakes of all kinds, manipulate the earth itself, and even peer into the past through reflective surfaces. Each new ability brought both wonder and responsibility. "Your journey is only beginning," Euryale told her one evening as they stood on a cliff overlooking the sea. "Our kind has always walked a fine line between two worlds. You must learn to balance your human heart with your Gorgon nature." Sophia nodded, watching the moonlight dance on the waves. "And my mother? Will I ever find her?" Euryale placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "That, my dear, is a quest that may take years. But you are not alone in it. Every Gorgon on this island is now your sister, your ally, your family." As the weeks turned to months, Sophia grew stronger and more confident in her abilities. She learned to control her stone-turning gaze with precision, and her hair, now a crown of vibrant, sentient serpents, no longer felt like a burden but a part of her true self. Yet, she knew her time on the island wasn't meant to last forever. There was a wider world out there, one that both feared and needed the Gorgon's ancient wisdom. "You have a choice to make," Euryale said on the eve of what would have been Sophia's senior year of high school. "You can stay here, safe and hidden from the world. Or you can go back out there, using your gifts to make a difference, to bridge the gap between myth and reality." Sophia looked at her parents, who had adapted to island life with surprising ease, and at Zack, whose presence had been approved by the Gorgon Council in light of his loyalty and thirst for knowledge. They all nodded encouragingly. "I think," Sophia said slowly, "that it's time for the world to remember the true nature of the Gorgons. Not as monsters, but as protectors, as keepers of ancient wisdom." Euryale smiled proudly. "Then we have much to prepare for. The path you've chosen will not be easy, but it is one that could change the course of history." As Sophia began to plan her return to the modern world, she felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. She was no longer just Sophia, the adopted girl with strange abilities. She was Sophia, daughter of Medusa, a Gorgon princess bridging two worlds. Her journey of self-discovery was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, confronting the organization that had tried to capture her, searching for her mother, and finding a way to reveal the truth about Gorgons to a world steeped in myth and misconception. But as she stood on the shores of her ancestral island, watching the sun rise over the horizon, Sophia felt ready for whatever lay ahead. With her family, both old and new, by her side, she would forge her own path, writing a new chapter in the ancient legend of the Gorgons. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Sophia's greatest adventures were just beginning.